Last episode, What a Car Accident Teaches You, I talked about what went through my mind after I saw a cyclist get hit by a car right in front of me. And if you haven't heard that episode, consider giving it a listen and then coming back to this one, as it'll help paint the full picture of this episode. The cyclist was hit by a mum and her son on the way to school. The son was about 11 or 12. Now, the last episode was more about the cyclist, and don't worry, she was okay. But this one is more about the people who hit her. And watching them was very interesting. So while the ambos were treating the cyclist, comforting her, doing their tests and checks, the mum who hit her was in a state of panic and shock, trying to process what had happened. She was clearly feeling guilt and concern and also genuine fear that she could be in big trouble. And she was feeling all of these things at the same time. Now, she seemed like a very put-together person, but the way this cocktail of emotion was manifesting was that she was barely able to get a sentence through. She was smashing up her words. She was inconsistent with her version of her story. She was flustered, on edge. And this was only magnified by the fact that the cyclist had told the story from her perspective and had absolutely no problem being very vocal about the fact that the driver was entirely at fault. Definitely a hard situation to be in. But what was so interesting was that while all of this was happening, the driver's son was not watching the cyclist and the ambos. The driver's son was fixated on his mum's reaction. And at that age, 11 or 12, we might think our parents are sometimes annoying, a little out of touch, maybe a little slow. We have a certain tween arrogance. But most of us still have a general confidence that our parents are adults, and therefore they are in control. And this kid was seeing his mum not in control. She was shocked. She was panicked. She was dealing with 50 emotions at once. And you could see in the son's wide eyes, watching his mum, that he had never seen his mum act like this. He had never seen his mum not as an all-knowing, omnipotent force of righteousness and composure, but as just another kid in a bigger, taller body. He was realizing that, just like him, most adults are working out life on the fly. Most adults are winging it, are doing their best, but certain situations push even adults to the point where their best falls short. It's a lesson every child learns at some point, and it's a very, very hard lesson. But I also think it's one of the best lessons you can ever learn as a child. The reason it's a hard lesson is because you realize that there may be situations that mom and dad can't protect you from. You realize that they are more vulnerable than you thought, therefore you are more vulnerable than you thought, and that is scary. But the reason why it's a good lesson is because you also develop a deep, profound empathy because you realize that your parents are no longer a different species to you. They're the same species. They're monkeys like you, figuring things out, making mistakes, getting ambushed by emotions, and even hormones. And all of a sudden, when you think about this, it means you don't have to take their behavior so personally. Because in fact, adults are not perfect cyborgs who make calculated decisions, and therefore every bad decision is intentionally made at your expense and every good decision is made for your benefit. No, you have this realization where you think to yourself, hey, just like me, my parents are flawed. Just like me, they make mistakes. And that means that they're my compatriots in the game of life. Now, this doesn't justify cruelty or negligence or any other behavior that has accumulated in us some flavor of trauma. But it's an explanation. It's an explanation of behavior. When you're dealing with your parents, you're dealing with humans. And humans are largely insane. So watching this scene unfold in front of him, this boy could see that his parent could also be pushed to a point where her insanity was no longer hidden for his benefit behind the carapace of a poised and graceful Range Rover mum. It was instead erupting on the curb in all its glory for all the world to see. And I was watching him learn this painful but ultimately beautifully valuable lesson. We can empathize better, even laugh a little, when we remind ourselves that nobody, presidents, pop stars, professors, princesses, and even our parents, are above being human. I'm Jonah Primo. This is the Overexamined Life. I'll see you next time. If you're finding some value in this podcast, you can help us tremendously by leaving a review or a rating, especially if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. Otherwise, please consider sharing it or passing it along to someone who may find it useful. Thank you so much for listening.